everyone. In this video, we are going to look at auditing case 4.1, which is from the pathology and laboratory section. So in this case, we are looking at a laboratory workup. We have a 65-year-old female with end-stage renal disease, hypertension, diabetes mellitus type 2, atrial fibrillation, who is on Coumadin. The patient is coming in to have labs for the following: a comprehensive metabolic panel, magnesium, prothrombin time, and a urinalysis, automated with microscope. So one or more of the following codes are reported incorrectly. Indicate that incorrect code or codes. So let's start by looking at our diagnoses. Again, open up your diagnosis manual. Let me share my screen. So the first code was I12.0. So let's verify that code. I12.0 is hypertensive chronic kidney disease with stage 5 chronic kidney disease or end-stage renal disease. And then it tells us use additional code to identify the stage of chronic kidney disease. So if we go back to our scenario, our patient does have end-stage renal disease and hypertension, so that code is correct, the I12.0 for the hypertension chronic kidney disease. Now we need to show the end-stage renal disease. So it tells us either N18.5 or N18.6. Our scenario gave us N18.6. So flip back to your coding manual. Let's look at N18.6 to see if that's the correct code. N18.6 is end-stage renal disease, and then it says chronic kidney disease requiring chronic dialysis. So that is correct, right? Our patient did state end stage. So we know those two are correct. Next we have diabetes, E11.9. So let's go back to our book and look at E11.9. E11.9 is type 2 diabetes without complication. E11.9, let's make sure our patient, it said type 2, which it does in our documentation, diabetes mellitus type 2, so that code is correct. Then our patient had atrial fibrillation, I48.91. So flip back to your book to I48.91. So I48.91 is unspecified atrial fibrillation. So again, look at our scenario. Just says atrial fibrillation, so unspecified is correct, so that code is correct. And then long-term drug therapy, Z7901. So now flip to the back of your book to your Z codes and look at Z7901, which says long-term use of anticoagulants, which Coumadin is an anticoagulant, so that is correct. So all our diagnosis codes are correct. Now let's look at our CPT codes. So the first one that's listed is comprehensive metabolic panel, which is the 80053. So get out your CBT book and let's go find these codes. So the first code was 80053 and comprehensive metabolic panel. And you want to know what is included in the panel. So we have albumin, bilirubin, calcium, carbon dioxide, chloride, creatinine, glucose, phosphate, potassium, protein, sodium, transferase, aspartame, and alanine, and urea, nitrogen. So all of those are included in our panel. And our documentation has the comprehensive metabolic panel, so that's correct. So the next code, 82565, magnesium, well, I want to point out we're still on our panel, and if we look here, 82565, that is right here. So that's part of this panel, 82565. We could not code that separately because it's part of our panel. So we are not coding that 82565 for the creatinine. It's right there. Next was magnesium, 83735, which is not listed in our panel. So let's look at the 83735. So magnesium, 83735. That looks good. Then our next code, if we go back, the prothrombin time, 85610. So now let's go 85610. 85610. 85610, prothrombin time. That code looks good. Let's go back to our scenario. Urinalysis, 81003. So let's flip back to our code book. Urinalysis, 81003. Says urinalysis by dipstick or tablet, reagent for bilirubin, glucose, hemoglobin, ketones, leukocytes, nitrate, pH protein, specific gravity, uryl, bilirubin, any number of these constitutes, and then remember we switch out after the semicolon, so ours would be automated without microscopy. So if we go back and look at our scenario, ours says automated with microscope. So we cannot pick code 81003 because that one says without. So we need automated with, which if we look right up here is code 81001. Okay, now let's go into 3M and look at how we would want to code this. So our patient was 65. Again, our product, we're going to do the HCPT CPT diagnosis group and hit continue. Then we're going to enter all our diagnoses. So first we had I-12. Then I'm going to add diagnosis again. N18.6, add diagnosis again, E11.9, add diagnosis again, I4891, and my last diagnosis was my Z code. Now we're going to add our procedures. So we had 80053, add procedure, 82565, add procedure, 83735, add our other procedure, 85610, and our last procedure was 81003. So we can add all of these. Again, we could look and see. Now, one thing right here, it brings up an NCCI edit that tells me we've coded the creatinine, right, 82565, with a panel, and that it is not appropriate. So it's always good to look at these edits. Now these nosology edits are things that 3M put in, but the NCCI are National Correct Coding edits. So these are very important. You always want to look at these. So we know right here by this edit that we need to look at those because these procedures conflict. So if you didn't know by looking in the book, we could come here to know. So we are going to highlight this code and right click to delete it. Now we know that our documentation for our urinalysis had with microscopy, not without. So we're going to add procedure. If you're not sure what the code was, let's look it up. We're going to do urinalysis. We're picking 2. It was not part of a general exam, so we're picking 2. It was with dipstick, with microscopy, so we're picking 2 again. It was automated, so we're picking 1. And there's our correct code, 81001. So I'm going to hit continue. Up here we have an edit because now we have 2 urinalysis codes. So I'm going to go down and we're going to delete the code we don't want. Delete. Now let's go back up to the top. Our edits are gone for the NCCI. Again, these are just 3M edits, things to look at about our diagnoses, which we already verified those are correct, so we're not going to worry about those. That's how we would do this case in 3M.